I came across this image whilst having a look at vintagefinearms.co.uk, and they claim it's an English Civil War infantryman's dagger. They do seem to know what they're talking about, but I think we could argue whether it's actually an infantryman's dagger from the Civil War or not for quite a while. But I thought it looked quite nice, so I thought, I wonder if I can make something similar. Yes, I can. So these are the pieces roughly cut out. Obviously this and this bit needs shaping, a bit more shaping to do on here, but that's going to be the size of it. You know, it's fairly small, the handle's quite surprisingly small, but then in the 17th century people were a lot smaller. These are the parts I made so far. Blade, quite happy with that shape. Made a little bit of tidying up, but it's supposed to be fairly primitive, so I'm not too concerned about it being perfectly symmetrical. Crossguard and the handle with its cap. What I'm going to do now is burn through the handle, so at least that fits, and then drill through here, then we'll obviously have to heat treat the blade and try and sort of get a bit of an antique patina to it. So I'm just filling the blade now, so I've got an idea of how to get this ground to shape. Hopefully I'll be able to do that without affecting, cut through here without affecting the centering too much. Let's see. It may not be the best way of building it, but it's my knife, so I'm going to build it how I like. And this is the bit I was looking forward to. Right, finished the crossguard. Made a bit of a mistake though. Yes, that's not really very clever, is it? So we're going to have to start again. And the way I'm going to do it is roughly cut out that bit, cut that, put it on, and then just grind it round to fit the handle. Because I'm getting fed up with this now. Right, had a satisfying afternoon's work. Got a crossguard now that fits. Obviously needs a bit of work to make it look a bit better. We've got an edge on there now, and overall I think a fairly handsome looking dagger. Still a fair way to go yet. Got to get the end cap done, but that should only be an hour or two. Heat treat, and then try and make it look a bit antiquey, and finish this guard off. I'll do that with a Dremel, I think, when it's all together. Progress at last. So finally, it's at the stage where it's together. This end cap was the old crossguard that I cut the wrong way, because I used it because I did have one that I've made, or started to make, but frankly trying to drill through this kind of steel can take literally hours, about an hour or so. So I had that there and I thought I'm going to use it, and I'm getting quite pleased with the way it looks. It's a little bit of rattle. We'll sort somebody's going to need a bit of gluing before we finally peen that over, but all in all I'm getting quite pleased with that. That's the heat treat done. Blade's been polished. Put a little bit of stain on the wood part of the handle. Now I'm going to glue it up, peen it over. Very close now. Put a bit more of an edge on there. That needs peening, but I think that's probably a bit too proud, so I'm going to take that down a little bit. A little bit of cleaning up. It's looking nicely aged already. I've got a special brew to make it look older. In this, what I use as a quench tank is a mixture of white vinegar and salt. It's 2 bottles of white vinegar and I think 2 tablespoons of salt, and it's got this kind of finish. I think this is looking quite nice and quite aging. All you do is dunk it in there, leave it for a few minutes to really soak in, and then just hang it up somewhere to dry, and it's getting quite a nice speckledy, antiquey, vintage look. I'm going to carry on doing this and then it will be left overnight. We'll see how it looks. Stick it in there, swill it about a bit, take it out, leave it to dry. I ended up putting the patinaing solution into a spray bottle and just leaving it outside, spraying it every so often, and then left it overnight. and it looks like that, which I think is a reasonably nice bit of patina. Let's see how good my heat treating is. All the way through. No damage. Could do that again, wouldn't I? Still nothing. I think that'll do. I've tried as far as possible to replicate the original. I've not done too bad a job. There's some detail differences, but then I think that was a one-off piece anyway. There were no standing armies, there were no standardised equipment, there wasn't a box of these that have been given out. The dimensions are pretty close to the original. Blade length, what's it, 22 centimetres, 9 inches. Handle, 4 inches, 10 centimetres. And it's smaller because, well, people were smaller in the 17th century. So that's my replica. Thank you for looking at it. We'll do a little bit about the history of the English Civil War. It's complicated, very complicated. Fought between 1642 and 1651, although there were conflicts before, and there were certainly conflicts afterwards. Locally, there was an uprising in 1680, so it battled on for quite a while. Charles I, who was the king at the time, managed to alienate Parliament and the country by marrying a Catholic, because he was a Protestant and those things were really taken seriously in those days. Went to war in Scotland and lost. The Irish rose up in sympathy because they were predominantly Catholic. The king went to Parliament to say, I want more money to have more wars. And Parliament said, no, stop being so stupid. Being a king, he had a bit of a hissy fit and declared war on Parliament. There were only sort of militias available in the counties, and basically you ended up fighting. If you were in the militia, you ended up fighting for who your lord told you to fight for, which, not very democratic, but then it wasn't. They're popularly known as the Cavaliers for the Crown, the King's Men, and the Roundheads for Parliament, Cromwell's mob. There is a myth that everybody had big floppy hats if you're a Cavalier, and a tin hat if you're a Roundhead. It's not particularly true. Excuse me. Cromwell's army did eventually have something of a uniform because of some unfortunate mistakes that were made on the battlefield, as the history I read put it. Eventually the king lost, Cromwell won, king was executed, off with the red, and Cromwell became a military dictator until 1660, when King Charles II came back and was restored, as was the monarchy. So it was all a bit of a sad waste of time, really. There's a lot more to it than that. It's a fairly, any civil war is a pretty horrible thing. It's a complicated story. It's now, it's beyond this channel for the few minutes. If you want to go, and there's plenty of places that do pretty detailed histories. But this is my, we'll say inverted commas, English Civil War infantryman's dagger. And quite an interesting time making it.